about the concept of science literature. As in the lunch. Okay, please come for the photo. Oh, it should be here.
Then maybe one or two more. I was talking to
Sorry, I was.
And then contact her then you can join with us.
So that's what I found. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think.
A science center from nothing, he will have a good advice for you.
There was the success of the Hanson method launched by and teachers also fear to teach science because they feel they are not.
12 years of their life in school, may exit school if they're lucky to go to secondary school.
Wisdom in Baghdad and what went on from 15 from
working group will adopt this or not. Now I want to come to.
In Shanghai, it's a large city where you can find the nature. Yeah, we can find
Patience and science, human resources development.
Nine research centers, 5 education centers, 21 libraries.
1, 2.
In communicating the right message of science with the wider public.
But there are also institutions who
such is very important. The travel or the tourist need.
go into details. My presentation is a little bit longer, but it's available. I have.
we will place our project and we will call it Eureka Lab. We found it, you know.
So it means we want to carry out research and start through.
Many breaks, I will not enter into detail, but hierarchy, or hierarchy, I don't know.
I said I'll go to touch upon the what is called the golden age of Islam.
Now, utilitarian arguments develop generic skill.
The world population is a lot. And then the area cover also a bit larger than Thailand. That's why it's.
For the Naturalist Museum, we met the exploration nature for the tourists.
Give a presentation, and he told the story that before he come to this competition.
So we provide building awareness events, which is that we want the community members.
Relaunch this action of la main à la pâte, which means the hands in the dough to
Technological development and use for the good of the people at large. And the science museums and centers.
The French agency, Agence Française de Développement, the IEP.
For science academies, and therefore our first thrust is to ensure that there is awareness on the value.
Refer to this study laser by Smithsonian. I think we could have, because not
The MC of this next few days workshop.
For those who are
We can say the core of the scientific spirit is the constant pursuit of the truth.
40 different lessons or activities for youth focused around how to ensure health for all.
I think I like that name, Eureka Lab, but I would love to hear from you people.
Renaissance, so much of wealth that was there.
Anyone at home that's got a 5G connection to download all that, the beam
Unfortunately, that Baghdad, that Iraq or that Middle East is not anymore.
Not here. Can you answer that?
Actually educating our students to solve the global challenges of our generation. So this is a
Science education. Last part, service suggestion.
Thinking as well as the ways that we do things are different and diverse.
In Shenzhen, in the ZTE global classroom, you see.
So exhibitions they do for the brands. It's very, very difficult. And then
also need to be shared, as we said, with others, so that they can benefit from the work that has already.
with questions about English geography, etc., as a student in the middle of Africa.
that we toured the country for 2 years. And because of what we did,
We must be put into the tool.
Mosquito-borne diseases, water scarcity, cybersecurity, climate change, as we just heard from Anzor.
The program was begun, and around the world it continues.
Etc. And so the question that the Inter-Academy Partnership under Deo Lee's
hope that you have a great rest last night, because it's going to be quite a long day for the rest of.
Not just the written, but actually in virtual reality form. And I always quoted this.
stimulate the visitor minds and to make, especially the repeat visits.
Point out now, at the present moment, we are working on 3 working groups. The first 2 are
To keep the questions to you, and at the end we will have a question answer session. Next.
Make it into a tourist attraction and of course tourist destination.
Subject content, and also understanding the community, and also what the community then will be.
That it can be shared with everybody, but I want to run through quickly to only.
We say science as an inquiry, an investigation, with first starting from the question.
My answer is positive from the 3 perspectives.
Colorful as others, because just I would like to tell a story about how the literacy in Indonesia pursue.
2 main ways, one of which is sort of development of projects.
The topic on the right, when Zika was very prevalent at the time in 2016, when Deo Lee.
Still insufficient to include scientific and technological multidimensional literacy as an educational.
To build their own knowledge, and also something which is important is the presentation as in an oral and.
That different civilizations are just diverse.
That a new prime minister has just been named, and the civilian government will be formed in the coming few days.
Actually teaching science, indeed, science was part of the curriculum. About many things, I will not enter in detail, but of course, website, training and coaching, resources,
is much appreciated.
Why are not more fellows of the academy here? Why?
To understand mosquitoes. Now this is self-report. We didn't actually ask them questions, scientific questions about the content, but you can
focus on the outlying areas where it is not commercially viable for the private.
The scope and and what we are hearing, Director UNESCO is not here, I think, but
is communication of scientific culture, an important role of Science Technology Museum.
of course some economies are stronger than others, and therefore they are able to spend.
With two Écoles Normales Supérieures de Paris and of Lyon, and then we did
this message from Alvin Toffler. This is a little bit advanced.
We don't spend much time or money to build physical infrastructure, but actually focus on the use. And he put forward the suggestion that it is not enough that we look into science education.
But anyway, Eureka Land, we plan to it as a mix.
Science academies, NASA, and the three hosting countries or institutions.
And provide professional development to teachers on the content over several days. We spend with them where the teachers actually do the lesson.
So the challenges they face are challenges that science centers are trying to address. I just want,
And then I think that's the only way is to interact by action, not talking.
I see. Because actually that was why.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How to say today? Chers amis.
Muhammad is one of the giants in the IAP.
Serves educators and students in their regions, if I understand the distinction. Okay. Our next content that helps students understand the science behind the UN Sustainable Development Goals and to use that science to do social good.
Of communication. Now this is just a history of what happened, and science literacy.
Consisting of natural history museum, art and design, music museum, aerospace museum.
the gentleman in white is the Minister for Education, and this is the point. Everyone's terribly keen to help.
The ratio is incredibly disparate, often much too high in too many of our regions. And as a result, it's really important.
So I think this, I would appeal to the young, especially the global young academy. Connie?
Engaging directly with objects and hands-on activities, and it's open to the public, as opposed to a center for science education.
I kept this to the last, from a private company, and not even the government agency.
Has therefore responded the government plan and tried to cultivate awareness of the significance of science and economic development and better.
With thousands of students across the globe translated into multiple languages, and so this is what we want to do, and any help you can give us. So welcome, Dr. McGrath. And I'll give you a sense of time. So if I hold up a 3, that means 3 minutes left.
Quantum computer. Quantum teleportation will be the new technologies. Actually,
also for the construction, the 1001 inventions is actually the golden age, about the golden age of Muslim.
How to say,
ignorance about science. He never attends science class. Whenever they have a science class,
synthesized around 10 different ideas, evolution and the environment, or the Big Bang Theory. And
climate change education, I think after the Paris Agreement, there's more emphasis on this, and some
digital divide amongst those who have the resources and those do not. But we also face challenges that could
thinking the professional development, and also, as I said, engaging.
I advance the idea of inquiry-based science education as one of the ways to solve these two problems. All that very bad communicated, but the young scientists and all that, like Connie itself, like Dr. O, they are not that communicated.
Developed subsequent strategic plans since 2001 up to now, and I think we currently have a strategic plan that runs up to
as they have, and the facilities for helping are really inadequate. The gentleman standing behind, Momananda Luanika.
To the Chinese on the Belt and Road, that Chinese should build a Belt and Road Civilization Museum on a virtual.
pushing science education and science literacy also has a place in the IAP system.
So answering institutions were formed, depending on the preparation level. Group 1 include Italy.
Most likely to harbor. What do those environments look like? They're predominantly wet, they're predominantly dark. What do the larvae look like?
Number of working group reports, and especially the one in red, the working group on education in the teaching.
In a very, very simple guide which enabled open-ended thinking, experimentation.
An issue that we think is relevant and for which science and science education can influence. So looking at opportunities and challenges for research on
the two concepts to give some suggestion, my thinking.
sources, not just one, and when we combine them all, that's where we can bring about the science literacy.
Eye-catching building. So our first president, he is the architect himself. So he designed the building in this.
IAP, SEP Council community with all the distinguished.
You see, some working groups have not done so well as compared to others, mainly because we were not able to get
our teacher workshops, which we have given in many, many countries, not only in Africa, but also in the Pacific and in Asia.
Reaching the middle school with this integrated teaching and science technology, I will give more detail. Then
of our academies, they are released as an official statement. And we think this process really gives the statements some good weight.
He is now the Secretary General of Higher Education in Indonesia. So
the practiced attempted, rolled out in each of the different countries in the Americas. So very authoritative overview of what's
program, and with the last couple of years that Dr. Lee has pushed for also science literacy
area. The second one about fake news, again, is about educating the children to distinguish what is true, what is false.
Thank you.
Living in the world of the science, we are all influenced by scientific spirit and scientific culture.
From 32 million hectares, we have only about 15 million hectares left. So it's high time not only to stop this trend, but to repress it.
Again, I think quite a notable publication that came through our IAP network. And this is our friend.
Further ado, may I now request the chair of the first session, Professor Manzoor Sumro, to tell us.
With it. At the beginning of the module in blue, they don't feel confident at all, low agency. At the end of the module, they feel very confident that they can make a difference.
On some of the network of African Science Academies work. And then we have the umbrella organization over the top, which I represent.
Yeah, embrace this challenge. After we talking about the Thailand, now let's our think.
Ages, or the Middle Ages. And we brought this in from Italy in 2003. And again, we were asked to bring it one, or part one. Part two is actually very challenging for us. We have to design and build
So, you know, it's creating a lot of racial, social disharmony and all this, you see. So in both the working group
needs that because so many people and too large area, and then we consist of the more than 300 ethnic groups. Our language is more than 700 living language.
And then we work with ad hoc committees and standing committees. The difference between the two is ad hoc is dependent on what activities we need to fulfill and what expertise.
And that, I think, that type of face-to-face communication between scientists and the community is also important.
Thank you. Maybe also you can develop some, pro forma kind of a survey. Whoever visits, not all will.
Same professional development session, then we go back 3 months later and we see how it's being implemented. We also collect.
It's excellent content. In fact, one of our major projects was actually
his point of view about the climate change is his personal or UNESCO, because
then that attend our water rocket competitions. He said he told us because we have a presentation.
Science education and science literacy in Africa in particular. This is what I can add now.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll talk about this.
So here's where we are now. Where you see red circles, we actually have proposals that have been invited proposals from organizations who've asked.
There are 6. I would hesitate to call them centers yet, but there are 6 organizations we are working with.
Which is based in Nairobi and for which I lead. And we work together with a couple of program staff and assistants, including also our finance officer.
S, and then what is the forward? So that's kind of the literacy. It means that you able to read, you knowing what you...
Experiential learning directly into classrooms across the country of the United States, but also across the globe. So our reach has been broad across the...
Science literacy should be promoted at its intrinsic value, citizen argument and utilitarian.
Open to the public. We are located in the middle of nowhere, very far from the city, and no public transportation.
What we try to do today, yesterday and today, is actually to prepare for the initiative of this science literacy.
Can't really have this museum visiting culture, which is very, very true. And then
the crucial needs in science education throughout the globe. He shared with us the structure, of course, of IAP and its subset organization.
And just another slide. This is the pupil to teacher ratio in primary education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
96, Mike and I, and they proudly showed us the one locked classroom, which was full of computers donated by the local university library.
Connected, and we have already, through various experiences, come to a conclusion that it's not really just one initiative, but you have to bring
backed up by good information, good skills, and then hopefully an iterative and a consultative process. So thank you very much.
50 years from now, from depleting natural resources. Very interesting. Yeah. And then after that, the owners of
4 regional networks that we have. Like any organization, we have our strategic priorities, the set that you...
It's a very different approach to getting their message across and being advocates for youth. So how do they enable themselves to be able to act that way?
Scientific knowledge. The diagnosis is that relationship between science, technology.
Many things this morning. Things like outreach, science, education, learning about the misuse of the Inquisition in 2003 about our touring exhibitions, because we work with Malaysian Museum, a federal capital called Putrajaya. And Putrajaya, we have, perhaps you can call it a captive audience of 1 million every year from tourists. Dr. Lee's invitation today, if not, I would not be able to meet so many of you to network with, you know. So I'm very glad.
We had the Minister of Education of Sudan giving a keynote address at that particular conference. This guy from the UNESCO region.
Then community appreciates science. So it's not to say that we must communicate to them. We communicate by saying what we have done.
Okay, so the science education program itself, you had quite a lot yesterday.
As I tell many of you before, that for my own niece, when she first saw this building, she asked me, the question she asked me, how people...
Pierre Lehner of France that I just mentioned, Mustafa El-Tayeb of the Sudanese National Academy of Sciences, and Jorge Allende.
In London again, the science of survival. It's about surviving the green effect.
Of your community or 100 of your community, do walk the talk, please. Don't talk the walk.
Networking between the regions and networks, which I already mentioned, is a must to benefit from diverse experiences. The role of science centers and museums and the linkage with the formal and non-formal education.
Question that you have or any clarification that you would like to have from session 1? Otherwise, we'll just listen to the second.
Make this project into a tourism attraction, because our target
they want to promote in their advocacy. And then we're using this directly in the policy. So we're working with the governments to then put this evidence into their policies. A local company to design, and their chemistry teacher, which is on the right, to design their own mosquito repellent. So again, this...
Increased scientific literacy may be taught to promote more democratic decision-making by encouraging people with
gaps and deficiencies in the incorporation of science literacy in science education to address the technological and scientific transformation that will drastically...
World Science Forum, it's a big event, lots of sort of science policy discussions take place. They release a declaration.
Heard what we did and we negotiated to buy a license. And we also gave them the confidence because
the tycoon of Mexico, the Carlos Slim. But the actually working is by the two vice co-chairs.
Southern Thailand who has an interest in education projects. At the moment you have to read through all the list. We want to make it so that it's an inquiry base. And again, the map, everything.
The changing disease patterns in the continent mainly focusing on non-communicable diseases. Now, something else I need to highlight about our program is the
general statement. Science literacy should be understood as integrated STEM literacy.
The question I think is very important. And here there is a lot of work being done. I mean, the Chinese learned recently that they are using now robots to communicate science.
So, this presentation earlier. I really enjoyed your story of how you outreach the students in different communities. And we, as an academy, we also did some.
In countries we have landlocked Laos, which doesn't have any mangroves, but we have Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and also China, with vast
address this ingress of the seawater into the land. That's one area. So I hope that UNESCO in Bangkok
can also involve the public to doing that. That is very interesting. I remember, because I spent 5 years in Tokyo, so I
like the engineering community to commit itself to this climate change adaptation and mitigation.
To look at a program that ran in Zimbabwe, with which I was directly involved over several years, the ZIMSI program. The ZIMSI program was a little bit different.
Areas and jobs that involve some science and develop important aptitudes, dispositions such as curiosity, wonder, acceptance.
Don't worry, when you come to the small city, there is certain people can speak English. It's adorable of Indonesia. So our GDP is quite huge, but it's have.
We are not the only one who do this. We are not the only one who promote science or communicate science with the public. But
we'd like to see in all schools developing that critical thinking, getting the teachers involved in sort of learning how to teach it.
We still need to get funds. We need to be self-supporting. So how do we do that? And based on what we used to do.
Presentation of all the speakers. I myself, my name is Kanika Chen. I'm with the National Science Museum as well, with Dr. Apiya. And I'm very interested in science literacy.
Is we trying to connect what happened in the past, we learn from the past, and make use of it in the future, and look forward to the future.
And at all about their scientific knowledge about infectious disease or mosquito-borne diseases, and in the end feel very confident. We also ask them questions about agency. How much do you...
A mobile phone can be charged or something like that. So the thing about this resilient infrastructure concept of World Bank, they want to...
And our last none other than National Science Museum, Thailand, in Pattaya.
Do this program called Youth as Researchers, and we're actually taking the youth to do a training course on how to collect and analyse and present their data. So they start right from the beginning, what is their research? And then if there's possible time, I'll show you a short video. So first of all, who are we? How many of you have ever heard of the Smithsonian Institution?
Bank already committed 25 billion US dollar to this project, and this project is to connect every African citizen above the age of 10.
Solve life's everyday problems. And civil scientific literacy is the knowledge necessary to play a full part in key decision.
This doesn't really happen, even though we sign an MOU with government museums, that doesn't really happen. And then local taxes, entertainment tax.
I would like to see her also.
She's coming in the journey. So, she has been very active in CMU.
It is under the management of the Inter Academy of Science. So they and then the other ones is that Canali Science Foundations also.
Another publication that we are working on is a book in 3 volumes, Water, Food, Energy Security Nexus in Asia Pacific.
Is the main value of the scientist. The person I think the scientific spirit have the minimum the 4.
It was associated with the foundation of the World Federation of Engineering Organization 50 years ago in March. At that time was also sponsored by UNESCO.
As we strive in providing authoritative science advice for policy formulation in development for the continent as well. In terms of governance,
I can only say we as humanity, we are really helpless, and we have to turn from helplessness to smartness, and we have to do that by mobilizing science education, science literacy, and then the
production. And finally, cultural scientific literacy involves now knowing those ideas in science that represent major cultural.
Exit this door, the fire exit is on your right hand, but for your personal emergency, the ladies' room is on the left hand side after the exit of this door. Okay, so
so that is the principle of our logos. So what we did, our first museum, as you see, is the.
In the British system, for example, the countries that I've listed there were expected to pass the British education exams, the O-level, the A-level.
That whether it's still not true. However, it emphasizes, it requires more emphasis on.
Good morning, everyone. As you can see, as this rolls down, I'm going to talk on international cooperation on science.
Managed successfully to remove from power a brutal and corrupt military dictatorship that ruled the country for 30 years.
Something important, and I think it is. And you say with these houses of science installed in universities and located in regions where
at the number of students who come, and if you observe their interaction with our exhibitions, you can see
not only between the science education programs, but science education programs as well as the science centers and the science museums and so on.
543, so it's year 2000, and this year 2003, and this is year 2009. So we have
the promotion of STEM in our events. We are in science literacy. Okay. Thank you.
Where?
We now powered by solar energy. So like the Huawei workstation in remote area, the workstation come with the solar panel itself. So
5 countries and Afghanistan and Azerbaijan joined this organization, so we are now 10 countries. These are the objectives.
Phenomena, understand ourselves, part of our culture. And citizenship argument, science knowledge and knowledge of scientists.
Science and technology. It's quite similar to the Muslim civilization, 1001 inventions, but this is more
where they've been looking at political activism among students. And the report's about 60 pages. They really have gone into this. So they've presented all of the data, and they
rural areas or so on. So should not it be the reverse, being installed in unfavored area and with connection?
Making some things. He was interested at the beginning, and he asked what they are doing, and then he learned that they are doing some composing the water rocket. So he is interested in a conference. As Kun O or Dr. Oragonok has said, that this conference has been sponsored by IAP and also host.
This is a school in Mozambique, which really is in dire straits when it comes to science education. In the country, writing for us and expressing their cultural preferences, and it went right out to every single secondary school, including those in the most rural areas.
Rainwater harvest, black water to biogas, grey water, recycling. So not just teaching schools and students what they can do, but have them actively participate. We celebrated it in Hanoi, in Vietnam, last year in Bangkok, Thailand. And the other day that we are celebrating is not only the United Nations Environment Program that is doing there.
But I think the question is not just how you communicate, the means of communication, which is now being solved as
on the ticket we printed, and we will pay upfront. And then, of course, there's the venue where you want to choose an ideal venue is very expensive. So we work with
Benno Boer from UNESCO Natural Science. He's going to talk about UNESCO Natural Sciences and contemporary socio-ecological issues. So without further ado, Dr. Boer.
Skills of scientists. How well are we able to communicate with the public? And as I was listening, I really did not hear a lot of emphasis on this aspect, on capacitating scientists.
Is very much in the minds of the UN, and especially like, for example, World Bank, like UNESCO, they talk all the time about how
in the shopping center before opening, I think it's 1997 that we opened this project. We call it Science Exploratorium.
It's not abreast with what is going on, and they had to have an intermediary or a communication tool to understand all the development and be skillful. I think today again,
of science, but also of social dynamization of the communities, and I think this requires special efforts, but can be very rich. And I have a small question for Daniel Rohan.
Me, of course. The others are very powerful group of government, industry, and all that, ministers and CEOs of mobile telephone companies and all. See? But the co-chair
is a promoter of touring thematic exhibitions. We were around since 2003.
Project, which our colleague was a part of this morning. And all of this is free to the public, supported partially by the U.S. Department of the U.S. Congress as a target to meet some of these global challenges. And so the Inter-Academy Partnership decided, how can we educate our youth on these most pressing global challenges, starting from a very young age of 6 until 17 years old. What that looks like. Right now, we're developing the second guide in collaboration with IAP called, actually we changed the title of it. It was called Nutrition, but what we realized when we started to field test it across the globe.
So that when the next opportunities come up, we'll just discuss in our
we have been here 3 years now, and every year only maybe one come.
Gradually, that's a difficult climate change. By developing different exhibitions, we saw some of the films, including the 4D.
Personally, I think in the future we must be thinking 3 points or the questions deeply. The first may be in science education.
We will hand over the chair to the Hassan II Morocco, Academy of Science and Technology, Morocco, and with Professor Waffle as the chair.
Enthusiastic. They love what you do, but can't do enough. This, for example, is the laboratory classroom. We gave a talk to the teachers in that school.
For the climate change adaptation and resilience in Africa, as one of the outputs that our standing committees has delivered, the grand challenge of water security in Africa as well, a policy booklet, and then also we got
He was the one who actually drafted the proposal to set up this museum. And at the beginning, we didn't think that we're going to have 5 museums. We only think about 1 museum. But gradually, it's...
As you said, there are communities that you have the children, you have the teachers, but you have the families and the social communities. And this makes...
Taking forward the climate education work. So we're not going to claim all credit for setting up this climate, but I think we played a significant role in assisting that process to move forward.
The Chinese population is too large, not is some things. So it's about the 57 million visitors have visitors.
Can be find easily, but then how to use knowledge and apply it into our life and into our society, and especially into the public policy, is more important.
Regional Office for Education in Asia Pacific. It has a small natural science unit and a small social science unit. And, but it's the second largest UNESCO entity in the world after headquarters in Paris.
The World Bank has actually mobilized funding of 100 billion for US dollars for this project. And World Bank itself had committed 24 billion. Of course,
show that in students there is a greater facility to relate to technology, but not to science. It's obvious. Actually, the growing in
how to engage scientists with museums. I will come across with the idea of citizen science. I'm wondering if you have heard about that. So recently there are many research-based projects that collaborate between scientists.
Over 60% of the population do not have access to energy. So there is no electricity. So I'm wondering whether this topic has been discussed, because without electricity you cannot get accessibility to the internet.
And according to the definition given by the University of Nebraska, science literacy could be seen as an enhanced capacity both at the individual and collective levels, and improvement realized with STEM. How can the national STEM centers, museums, industrial science centers, mobile thematic exhibition, and other tools, instruments contribute?
It's heavy.
What will your center do? What is the center about?
Building, like, encourage and strengthening STEM education, for the regional countries.
These are some of the networks that are in place now. The Coalition of Museums for Climate Justice, we are still in, and the Museum and Climate Change Network. These are some of the international networks.
Interim Chairman of IAP SEP, Professor Wang Xiaoming, Director General of the Shanghai Science and Technology Museums, members of IAP SEP Global Councils, distinguished guests,
in science, technology, engineering, and math. The Smithsonian Science for Global Goals project was a collaboration with IAP, and its primary focus was around the challenges that many of our youth face. So this harkens back
to mobilize the ASEAN engineering community to work with UNESCO Bangkok to try to have an event next year. But the other very important UNESCO initiative that is nearing completion this year is the Second World.
She will be the chair of the session today. Please welcome her to the stage.
So this morning, so welcome. This morning we'll
got this by 543. 2005, that's mean 14 years ago. Now, when we first have this competition, it's only less than 50 teams, but now we have more than
Okay, specifically regarding science museum and centers.
For her, just one-to-one. So this is what I want to suggest, that we try to get Nobel. Well, Nobel Foundation is very rich, and Nobel Prize is
from Ghana, and who had worked. She has worked in UNESCO office in Nairobi and Harare for a very, very long time. So the message to the IAP SEP from UNESCO is that please help Africa.
Evaluating our programs or an external expert, we've actually asked the youth to do the evaluation. And it's really interesting because they've picked up things I did not think of, or they've seen it from a way that I didn't think about it. Some of the things I thought we were doing really well, they've said we're not doing so well. So it's
Expo like Shanghai is all very interactive, as if through virtual reality, that the kids can actually interact with what is being shown, you see. So now we have got the
data and evidence scientifically. The main actions could be the promotion of STEM understanding and the expansion of the science literacy. How to define science literacy, or more generally, globally, STEM literacy?
National Telecommunication Union and UNESCO. And then following the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, now it is called the UN Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development.
The scientists are there and we want them to face-to-face communicate with the local region about how working with all of the local students, the teachers, multiplies these scientists' impact. So we've heard scientists say, there are only 4 of us, but now with you, reasons the Smithsonian is highlighting scientists throughout the modules, that as students work in their community, we want them to see scientists, to hear from them. But we do interview these scientists and then we translate what they've told us into text that is...
You know, on the extreme right, the commission. And then this was the last meeting in April in this year in the Facebook head office in Silicon Valley.
Yesterday and last night. I hope you have a pleasure flight and you have a good dinner last night and enjoy have a good rest so that can keep you wake up throughout the day. It's gonna be a long day. And
scientific literacy is defined and how it is translated into curriculum practice. To reach these goals is include increased numbers of recruits, greater support for scientific research, and more realistic public expectation of science. Now rapidly developing disciplines and sectors like artificial intelligence, tourism, and exhibitions. Needs close collaboration at national, regional, and international levels.
Based on our past experience. And we also were the advertising agency for Tourism Malaysia for 6 years. So we also used that to learn how to promote this new concept of
scientific literacy is a very important tool to promote this incorporation in the new century. The question is, what is the role that center, museums, and scientific programs are playing in Colombia to address this problem?
Is enough or not, but I think if you start it and then can galvanize support from African government, African industry and all that, the money will come. So if you actually help to boost the economy of Africa.
Yeah, we work very well together. Yeah, and if we have a chance to chat, right? Yeah. Thank you.
So Muhammad is from Sudan,
yeah,
but he has been one of the top leaders of IAP.
Yes.
So now we are
easy, depending on the considered aspects, the necessity to work together with young academies to connect university to museums and so on. So thank you for
to some sayings that the Western Museum should be becoming the living fashion in the future. Living fashion, it means that we can attract more and more people coming to the museum, share our science.
Welcome. So I'm sorry, I will not speak of science museum, but more of formal education through the action of the Foundation La Main là-bas. So let me works. Oops.
PM Paris time, he's going to undergo eye operation. So I'm therefore actually what they call an interim chairman, taking the place of Al-Taib Mustafa, and I hope that we all wish him a very successful operation.
And education, and that's where I think there's a need that we need to come together, share each other's experiences, benefit from each other's experiences, and I think something that has been done in China or what Carol's institution has been doing, that.
And that's based on the pure passion of our members. But on top of that, we also have technical skills on energy or biodiversity or smart city. So I was wondering if it will be possible for us or other young scientists to be involved in your activity that's already going on.
At that time, I didn't think that museum is really related to me because it's not in the KPI. Well, I will not benefit anything from that. But I thought that, well, okay, I can spend just like 1 or 2 days and try to explore a little more. But after I experienced that, I found that, well, actually there are a lot of things that scientists can contribute to the museum and vice versa.
So we take these scientists and we tell stories about them all throughout the module, and the students follow the scientists as they learn the science. And they see that these scientists actually look a lot like them. They think like them. We actually have the scientists do their own identity map so that students can see themselves in others.
Morning.
Salut mon coco, ça va? Bonjour.
Literacy or literacy is that it is very low, comparatively speaking, not about from the US, but the third world countries especially. As there isn't much science learning, and this is very true, especially in Malaysia, and as Dr. Indrajani mentioned earlier.
Enjoy their interaction with science, with our exhibitions, with our activities. And I think same as many other things in our life, it has to start with our interests. If somebody can make us interested in something.
Population, which I believe is a common goal of everyone in this room. I hope this conference will bring about many effective ideas and projects that will lead to the achievement of our common goals. Finally, on behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, we will do whatever we can to support the IEP.
Ron, who is the president of La Main Foundation of France, he's going to talk about the next 10 years of La Main.
Thank you. So, Mr. President,
project that World Bank, the World Bank Commission and the World Bank have jointly started. And this is after last year when the CEO of World Bank, Christina Georgieva, joined World Bank Commission, and she said that we have a project about Africa, how to connect
all the population of Africa above the age of 10-year-old to broadband. You will see that if you call about the 4G coverage, the coverage of 4G in Africa is only 7% of the world total. So Africa is lagging behind the world in broadband coverage. So I think that to achieve this digital infrastructure moonshot for Africa by 2030 is a major challenge.
Your lightning on that.
Okay, but the first thing that we really wanted that those house for science be in university.
Yes.
University are in the big town, you know that.
Yes.
Okay, but now, as I said, in most of them there are several pilot centers which are indeed implemented in rural areas, in also in the zone of yes.
Our National Science Museum, if we can make students feel familiar with science, have a good perceptions about science, that is the very good beginning to make them be more interested in science. And also because we have many evidence to tell us that when the students interact with activities, our activities, science activities, they change.
Simple ideas how to publicize science, the red carpet ideas, you know, the science cafes, how to merge tourism and science. There's a lot of rich ideas that perhaps don't even cost that much, which we can integrate already, and especially how we can share resources, especially digital resources. So I really appreciate that. I would only like to comment on two things. One being, I'm really glad to hear that integrating cultural, traditional knowledge is being thought about, and that context is really important. So I'm really glad to hear about that, and I'd like to explore that further. But I also...
Science and technology should move forward, and that will impact a lot on us. If our citizens or our public do not follow what is going on in science and do not participate in this policy decision making, then well, how could we say that we live in a democratic society, and then we will just receive the result of the decision of people on the top only. However, I think this is not an easy agenda, especially for ASEAN country. You know, we have a large gap between on how people, especially after school, school age, access to science information. And I found that nowadays there are a lot of information available on digital format, online, which is actually could be real or not real. But these information are easily accessed by the public, and some of them really follow those informations. They are open to those information, even though they seems difficult. So I think besides talking about science in class, should we also think of way that the scientific community could really provide appropriate information to the public, so that they can learn and follow what is going on, and use the right information to make decision, and to probably participate more in public policy. So I think this is an important task for us